Take a look at the Pokemon usage rates on Pokemon Showdown. In the second tier, Lokix, Gen 9's early game bug-type Pokemon, is one of the most used Pokemon in the game. That's incredible. After decades of new Pokemon, the second tier is full of powerful threats like Tyranitar, Latios, and Metagross, and Lokix has them all beat. That's not supposed to happen. Lokix has 450 base stats and is part bug, the worst type in the game. The early game bug is supposed to be fodder that gets destroyed by other Pokemon on their path to greatness. Power creep has hit so many of the former great Pokemon. Snorlax dropped to ZU, the 6th tier, Raikou dropped to the 5th tier, PU, and Deoxys Defense dropped to NU, the 4th tier. In a world where every Pokemon is getting destroyed by power creep, there's one small difference. Lokix is the power creep. Ordinarily, when you find out a low stat Pokemon is actually good, really good, it's pretty obvious why. Clodsire has a terrible base 430 stat total until you look at each individual stat and you realize it's completely min-maxed and the stats that matter are actually great. Azumarill looks bad until you see its ability Huge Power, which is one of the best abilities in the game and doubles your attack stat. So what about Lokix? Is there one magic reason, or is it a combination of a lot of small things working together? Or maybe it's somewhere in the middle. When you look at Lokix, what does it fundamentally do? Nothing really stands out. Every stat is below average besides maybe its attack stat, but even then 102 is nothing great. But then you look at something very interesting. Its ability is Tinted Lens. Tinted Lens is quite strong. Any not very effective attack gets their power doubled. That is one of the better abilities in Pokemon, but that alone isn't enough to save a Pokemon. Noctowl has Tinted Lens and is terrible. Bravery Hisui, Yanmega, and Venomoth all have Tinted Lens and are varying levels of bad. But Lokix has something these other Pokemon don't have. That is the combination of Tinted Lens and two very important bug-type moves. First is First Impression, a strong bug-type priority move. With the stab boost, that is actually pretty dangerous. But most importantly, with Tinted Lens, it means that First Impression is almost unresisted. Only quad resistances to bug like Cobalion's Steel Fighting or Okidogi's Poison Fighting have a resistance after Tinted Lens. Lokix is the king of shutting down offensive Pokemon. Generally speaking, offensive Pokemon have high power and speed at the cost of their defense. If they ever need defense for anything, they rely on their typing to do it for them. It's a pretty solid game plan. After all, low defense doesn't matter if they knock you out before you can move. But First Impression Tinted Lens cuts right through that and exposes the weakness that so many offensive Pokemon have. They can't even terrestrialize out of First Impression because no matter what type you are, you're always getting destroyed. It's pretty common to go Terra Bug on Lokix too. Lokix is a natural predator to all the tier's most powerful offensive Pokemon. They either have to run a move like Protect, specifically for Lokix, or they have to give up and stop their sweep. You really have to appreciate how Tinted Lens First Impression mitigates the bad typing of Bug. Offensively, it doesn't matter that Bug is bad, and defensively, it doesn't matter that Bug is bad because you simply knock out the opponent first. Similarly, a lot of Lokix's bad stats don't matter. Who cares that Lokix's speed is average when it always attacks first anyway? Who cares that Lokix's defenses are bad when it's trying to knock you out before it gets knocked out? There are pretty obvious flaws that Lokix has, but its inherent build mitigates these shortcomings. Lokix fits a lot of team structures because it fills a very valuable role called speed control. It's able to keep a lot of fast, powerful Pokemon like Battlebond Greninja or Calm Mind Latios in check. With Terra Bug, it even keeps Pokemon in check that you wouldn't expect. Belly Drum Azumarill or Swords Dance Excadrill all take massive damage from a Terra Bug First Impression. But being a one-trick pony isn't enough to make a Pokemon this highly used. There's actually even more. The threat of First Impression often leads into one more powerful move. On top of First Impression, it also has U-Turn. U-Turn is the king of momentum. By attacking while you switch, you can rack up damage while also constantly putting yourself into good matchups. If your opponent switches Cobalion in on U-Turn, now you go to your Latios and punish it. U-turn is the best pivot move in the game because unlike Volt Switch, which is blocked by ground-type Pokemon, nothing can stop U-turn. It's such a good move that a lot of non-bug-type Pokemon use U-turn as well. And when you put U-turn on a bug-type Pokemon, you gain that added stab boost and you create a truly powerful Pokemon. Thankfully, a good stab U-turn is incredibly rare. The closest example is Genesect, who is actually banned because of those stab U-turns. Lokix in some ways is kind of like a light version of Genesect. Because Lokix is faster, it noticeably takes advantage of the hit-and-run strategy better than Scizor, the only other relevant stab U-turn Pokemon. Again, with Tinted Lens, you have a real monster who can zip in and out, chipping down Pokemon and gaining momentum. You end up with a really nasty combination. Versus offense, you are great with first impression, and versus slower teams, you're still great as you U-turn all over them, spreading hit-and-run damage. You easily form momentum-based team structures where you use Volt Switch and U-turn to rack up damage while the opponent can't even touch you. First impression and then U-turn are definitely Lokix's defining characteristics, but there's still a little more depth to the Pokemon. Its dark typing also comes in handy. Lokix learns Knockoff, one of the best utility moves in the game because it removes items. In particular, it lets you remove heavy-duty boots. When you lose your item, all of a sudden you become extremely vulnerable to Stealth Rock and Spikes, two of the most meta-defining moves in the game. Think about the knock U-turn combo in practice. Say the opponent has a Pokemon that beats Lokix like Tornadus T. The first time around you knock off Tornadus and switch out. Now every time you want to switch into a powerful U-turn, your best Pokemon is now taking a U-turn and Stealth Rock damage too. There's also added synergy because one of the only ways to punish U-turn is Rocky Helmet, and Knockoff would remove that. Static Zapdos is a relevant Lokix U-turn punisher in the tier, and that hates losing its heavy-duty boots because of its natural flying type. Again, first impression versus offense, and then Knockoff plus U-turn versus defense. There's no matchup where these characteristics will ever be bad, and it's why Lokix is such a great Pokemon despite its low stats. It's no coincidence that two of the other top Pokemon in the tier are Cobalion and Okidogi. They both suffer from the U-turn into Latios problem, but with a quad resistance to bug and a naturally high defense stat, that's as close to a counter as you're going to get. To round it off, Lokix also has Sucker Punch for those situations where you've exhausted the first impression and you still want a priority move to use. There are a couple other options too, like Swords Dance or Leech Life for healing. Swords Dance in particular turns Lokix into an unexpected late game sweeper. And while Lokix wants to use heavy-duty boots for obvious reasons, you can even go with an item like Silver Powder or Choice Band if you're confident that you can manage hazards. The reason that Lokix isn't in the first tier is at some point the power isn't enough. Lokix's effectiveness is predicated on the idea that first impression is getting that KO, or that Lokix's U-turn is strong enough to make you want to switch. But that's not true at a higher power level. In any case, Lokix has defied everyone's expectations and it's not a meme. Lokix is genuinely a really good Pokemon.